Welcome back. Now, the presidential primary might have been a foregone conclusion in the APC, but not all of the party's primaries went that smoothly. The party suffered hitches in governorship primaries in Imo, Delta, Rivers, Lagos, Ogun, and Zamfara states. The situation in Imo, Delta, Lagos, and Ogun appears to have been resolved with the primaries concluded, but the situation in Rivers State suffered a hiccup when a state high court in Port Harcourt nullified the nomination of Tonye Cole as the governorship candidate of the All Progressives Congress in the state. The party has, of course, appealed against that ruling. In Zamfara State, it's even more dire. The Independent National Electoral Commission has already written to the party saying it does not expect it to produce any candidate for elective positions in the state following its crisis-hit primaries. National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Adams Oshiomhole, has of course hit back, insisting that the party will present its candidates for all elective positions in the state. Oshiomhole disputed INEC's position in the letter that no primaries were held by the party before the expiration of the time allowed for party primaries, insisting that voting is not the only mode to produce a candidate in a primary election according to the electoral law. He says the party will choose a consensus candidate before the October 18th deadline for submission of candidates. Well, the APC is not the only party that suffered hitches during its primaries. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, also had issues, most notably in Kano State. So wait and see how all of these issues will be resolved at the end of the day, especially with that of Zamfara that is generating a lot of debate across the country. And joining me on the program now to continue in that debate is Kingsley Ononuju, who is a former NEPAD advisor and, of course, an expert in good governance and conflict resolution. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. First, let me start by asking you the kind of crisis we are seeing after these party primaries, especially with the APC. Is it something that surprises you at all?
Not really. This is politics. This is democracy. A lot of interest. And that is the essence of democracy. What is important is how we are able to resolve the crisis. I know here and there are few distortions in the primaries, as the case may be, but that tells you the extent to which Nigeria want to remain under democracy. People have right to express their franchise and their God-given right in expressing their interest in politics.
Well, it would appear that, especially in the APC, the crisis seems to, the crisis, I would say, seems to be intense, if you like. Is there any way you can explain this? Can this be explained? Could it be just because it's the ruling party? Because some time ago when the PDP was the ruling party, it was something like this too when they had their party primaries.
Yeah, I think so. 36 states and Abuja, it will rule out at least 3-4 states or thereabout where there will be disagreements as the case may be. This is 36 states and Abuja. And more so when people want to identify with good governance, as being put together by the present government of President Muhammad Buhari, and then a few agencies that are looking in that direction, about good governance. Good governance is the way to go. So people want to associate with APC government, and that's the only way we can get into sustainable development and growth. 3 years plus, as the case may be, as another tenure that is left, constitutionally provided. So people want to go with the moving trend, especially with the picture of incorruptibleness of the present government.
Let's talk about, let's look at the legal side of things now. The situation with the APC in Zamfara State. INEC has come out to say APC would not be fielding any candidate for the election in that state because, of course, according to INEC now, the party did not beat the deadline for organizing, conducting primaries and all of that. And of course, we've had the APC come out to say, especially the APC chairman now, come out to say the party actually had a primary, if you like, that they had a consensus, they had consensus candidates and what have you. You look at this back and forth now between INEC and the APC over Zamfara. Do you think this is one case that might end up in court?
Very well. Very well, may or may not. You know, the constitutional provision, I mean, the constitutional provision for the parties, if you want to, for example, in my party, some of the parties have what we call direct primaries in some part like APC, and then they have consensus, and then they have indirect primaries. So it is the place of the party to inform INEC if there was an election or not, especially when it has to do with the deadline, with the constitutional deadline provided for the parties to participate and do their primaries. So if no state, no party will want to be shut out from providing those who will represent them. You know that very well. With that at the back of our mind, it may end in court or may not, once a consensus is reached between the state and the party NWC, that's National Working Committee of the party. If they resolve and communicate, look at our position, there was primaries on so and so, and they conform to the deadline, they conform to the deadline, then the INEC have no choice but to accept what the National Working Committee or the neck of the party provides.
Let's now go over to Rivers State, where, of course, the state high court in that state actually ruled a few days ago that, basically nullifying the primaries, and the entire Congress is now conducted by the APC in that state. Of course, the party has appealed, but how do you think that is going to play out? Because what some people have said is that with the pronouncement of the court, it basically means the APC has no candidate at all for any of the elections in Rivers State.
What the court provides is the stand. It is the position for now. If we have to go by the rules, and by the constitutional provision, if court makes a pronouncement, the parties will abide by it. But perhaps, they might seek other windows. They might, if it's a matter that could be appealed, they could appeal on it, and then, however, they could be accommodated at the end of the day. But what is important that is finally they were able to go to court, which is the last hope of parties.
Let's talk about the elections now. What do you foresee? What do you think with what we have seen with the party primaries? I mean, you also have some, a few problems too, even with the PDP primaries in some states. But with what you have seen and the kind of contestations we have seen now, how do you think the main election itself will play out?
Most of the times, we try to overhype some of these issues. We try to overhype it. I think this is all you moves you're getting is the participation, that people involvement, because it is democracy, people have a say, people have the right to express their interest, as it is in PDP, so it is in APC, and you can say that also of other parties like ABGA and what have you. But don't forget that we'll have a date, even for substitution as the case may be. The closing date, I think, provided for is about 18th. It's 18th or thereabout. So we have time for this wheeling and dealing for primaries to take place. I mean, for parties to bring in their candidates and who will represent them and flag, fly their flags in the incoming election. So this is the time for it. Whatever it will take for us to have a smooth transition, I am all up for it, and Nigerians are ready for it, because there's no other better way to go than to have a democracy, that this is the choice that people have made for themselves. So that is what you're seeing going on now. But I don't think it will get out of hand, knowing fully well that the structures for democracy are already in place. We have had this in the last, since recent democracy, since 1999, and parties have played to the rules until now, and I think by 2019, we're going to have the same thing. But it's just that apprehension, and people are like, who knows, by presentations from ABGA or other parties or PDP, and then the incumbent in APC. What is it going to be like?
We saw former President Olusegun Obasanjo endorsing the candidate of the PDP, his former vice president, his former deputy now, Atiku Abubakar. And You think that will play a huge factor in next year's election? Because obviously it appears the PDP is seeing that as a boost for its candidate.
No, there's a time for forgiveness for whatever Atiku has done, and then because I know only until yesterday or day before yesterday, they've been on Obasanjo, President Obasanjo walked away from Atiku for what he considered some level of betrayal or whatever as the case may be. I'm aware, because leadership is everything. When he was when he came into government, and then he was busy globetrotting to pull Nigeria out of pariah. Then Atiku was busy with the economy and the privatization, and perhaps patronizing himself one way or the other. And the Obasanjo wasn't happy about that, and that seemed to be protracted, and all coupled with other issues. He had full 8 years, of that government. And we all know it. He says it. He's very vocal, and he wasn't hiding it. I mean, President Obasanjo, Atiku, and considers his aspiration to be the president of that which he cannot support, he can't align with. But for him now, he said, well, he's human now. He's forgiving him, as the case may be. But that has nothing to do with present government. We have a leadership of an incorruptible man, and I think leadership is everything. Leadership comes with character and content. When I see groups like Good Governance of Ambassadors of Nigeria feel good, that's the Gogan, because what they represent and things like that. For if government is not good, then you can't talk about the deliverables of democracy. So while we talk about PDP getting how they carried out their primaries, I'm comfortable with what they did in their primaries. But at the same time, the question now is, would that upset the incumbent? It may not, because the picture, the global picture and perception is important about anybody who is leading. So once the character and content is in order and the integrity, then the rest is what the rest of the team will do to ensure that Nigeria is placed on the path of growth and development. And I want to point out here that if we see where we are now, it is because of leadership, and then we need the courage to stand and then deliver the deliverables. That can only come through good governance and sustainable development. And you must have the 4 critical pillars in this area. One of them is democracy and political governance, which we have. 2 is economic governance. 3 is corporate governance. And 4 is economic, socio-economic development. You must have these critical pillars well guided with the rule of law and transparencies, as the case may be. And then the goals, the agenda which you want to pursue. And you know today that the present government is doing stuff in that area, fighting corruption, and we've seen convictions in that level. And at the same time, security, insecurity, and the economy, addressing it. So this thing will only take time, because if you go back to PDP days of 16 years of PDP, and then this APC is only 3 years plus, it's not up to 4 years. I think it calls for patience. I remember the foremost president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. He said he's a slow walker, but he never walks back. So I think we should be patient with what is going on. The quick change, I may not be the best apostle for it, but I am an expert in governance. 3 years in the life of any child is nothing to write home about. He might not even write his or her name, the baby, I mean. So let's give another 8 years when somebody can say, my name is so-and-so, I am from so-and-so, and I am in primary this or that. That's what I think. And then after that, if the structures, infrastructures, or what is the governance is brought to bear doesn't look like it, we can now begin to call for certain change. More so, yes, more so when there are deep-rooted corruption, which has been the bane of our politics here.
All right, Mr. Onanuju, thank you very much for joining us on the program. He's a lawyer and, of course, a former NEPAD advisor and an expert in governance and dispute resolution. Thank you very much for your thoughts and for your contributions.
The pleasure is mine. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a short break and we'll be right back to continue this conversation.
On Deji 360, we don't just ask the questions.
What is wrong with amending the Constitution the way the National Assembly members have been doing it?
We seek answers.
Constitution is constituent. Our problem is not lack of laws. Our problem is lack of the willpower to implement our laws.
Answers that provide clarity.
While we negotiate, we should try to make it a point that the girls must be complete.
The clarity you need to make informed judgment so that you can make the right decision and take action.
People are saying it is you politicians that are responsible for this, that you are the reason why this is happening.
All these dullards that call themselves governors in this country.
I wish we had people like Tony at the National Assembly.
God forbid that I go to join that band.
Deji 360, providing clarity to issues.